You love family life, right? Family's not a place where you receive trauma, is it? Growing up was fantastic, wasn't it? Well, how apposite it is then that there is a media narrative being spun now to invite us to regard the Biden administration as a kind of warped family. A little more Adams and Manson than mom and pop, but family nonetheless. Here's Howard Stern, a man who, I've got to say, was an innovator in media, a brilliant provocateur. But in this interview, it seems that he is pretty heavily dedicated to kind of ideologically filleting, ornamenting Joe Biden. Now, it's semi-tragic, I would say, that Joe Biden is almost unable to respond to this. Joe Biden, even as he's being complimented, he's not able to sort of nod or smile or raise an eyebrow because, as you know by now, and I take no joy in saying this, Joe Biden is extremely old and not only incapable of the extraordinary office of the world's most powerful person, but also he's struggling to receive a compliment. Let's have a look.
And you're the kind of leader I love because we're lucky to have you in the Oval Office and serving as the father of the country. Because if you're a good father to your family, which you are, I know you'd be a good father to the country.
Okay, so it's as simple as that. If you're a good father to your family, and I suppose by that he means, you know, he does go out of his way to get Hunter Biden work, it seems. He's willing, and I'm not making an allegation here, it seems like he's willing to use his connections to get Hunter Biden that Burisma gig, shall we say. So, okay, that's fair enough. And if this was a one-off incident, it would be a brilliant and happy coincidence. But this language of family and familiarity is eerily present in several distinct pieces of state propaganda. You'll see in a minute an interview between Kamala Harris and Drew Barrymore, who I also actually adore and think is fantastic. I mean, it's Drew Barrymore from E.T., for God's sake. Who doesn't love Drew Barrymore? Who doesn't love E.T.? And Colin Jost from the formerly great institution SNL, making great avuncular praise of Joe Biden, or more specifically, he doesn't say he's uncle, like he says he's like a grandfather. This is reductive. This is simplification. This is a psyop. This is the invitation for you to look at a failing administration as somehow a family. We ain't perfect, but we're trying our best. Your mom's your mom, your dad's your dad, and your grandpappy's your grandpappy. And what the hell if they're waging war and supporting war and lying and inflating the threat of a political opponent in order to prevent you having any alternatives? They're still just your family. Let's stay with Stern and Biden for a while, but there's plenty more examples to show you of this family psyop. You are being induced into Stockholm syndrome with your own government. This is extraordinary.
And I want to thank you for providing a calming influence, an organized administration post-COVID, getting that vaccine out. I remember what the world was like at that point. Getting NATO, getting us to feel comfortable, standing up to Putin, the incredible large growth in the jobs, unemployment rate down.
I mean, what is this bizarre eulogy stroke homily? And what is Joe Biden doing? Grasping the shaft of that mic stand like it's a cane or a defibrillator. And why is Howard Stern, this great orator, provocateur, brilliant innovator in media, essentially doing a live version of Michael Jackson's song, Ben, to Joe Biden? Ben, the two of us need look no more. While Joe Biden just stares. We've both found what we've been searching for. What's Joe Biden's reaction to this?
I'll give you your greatest hits. The lowest uninsured rate in history. 4 out of 5 Americans are covered for less than $10 a month. Knocking off a few ISIS leaders. Cutting the emissions in half. I mean, you've always been an environmentalist.
You've always been an environmentalist. This is astonishing. Don't you think it's really weird? You are you, right? So you know what your life's like. Wait a minute, I know what I'm experiencing. I'm really, really dreadfully unhappy. The world is falling apart. There's a total lack of investment in the infrastructure of the United States. The schools, health services, law and order, the border crisis. And then just people turn up on your TV set to say, no, it's fantastic. Here's a list of how great things are. COVID was brilliant fun. The vaccine was a success. These wars in the Middle East are brilliant. You are a decent man. And provoking Russia into a nuclear war? That's excellent. Getting your son a job at Burisma? You are a great Peppy. I love you.
Even the marijuana reform laws, enough with sitting there and fighting that battle. Respect for Marriage Act. What the hell is with people with this gay stuff? Who cares if someone's gay?
Is anyone still concerned? Like, I don't even remember the last time that had to be addressed as a subject. Whether you are an atheist, a Muslim, a Christian or a Jew, who knows what words might be unravelled from within the great scriptures. But on a daily basis, I pray the conversation around people's right to love one another is not one that needs to be elevated to the forefront as if, do you know what the great success is of the Biden administration? Gay people. Thank God. Because under the Trump administration, gay people were having a hell of a time. But now Biden came in and he made it okay and safe to be gay. Because before Biden, it was not right what was happening.
How is it affecting anybody? People in love, it's good, right? Love is good.
My dad, we saw two men kissing one another in Rodney Square when I was going in to get a license. I looked at him and he said, Joey, it's simple. They love each other.
That's it. That's how I look at it.
Me and my dad, we saw Rodney King getting beaten by some policemen. We said, that's it. That's just a great day for America. He's just sort of grabbing language from the sky at this point, isn't he, Joe Biden? This idea to regard Joe Biden as decent, that's a word that came up a lot in the White House press conference dinner. And I predict that decent and familial linguistics, language and nomenclature will play a big part of the presidential campaign. That you'll be invited to look at familiarity as comfort. That sure, Joe Biden is not great. We can't even begin to pretend that he's great. We can't offer you a vision. We can't tell you how we're going to steer the world through the various impending crises. But he is decent, and he's a bit like your dad or your granddad or your grandma, or something familiar. Thank the Lord we can bring you this content because of the support of our sponsors. Support them if you can. Today I want to talk to you about Field of Greens. It's the healthiest thing I do every day. And I want you on this journey with me, side by side. It's literally one scoop a day. It tastes great. My favourite is the original flavour and it's completely improved my life. This is nutrition, the way that nature intended, in a scoop. Here's what I noticed since I started taking Field of Greens. Way more energy over the course of the day. Sleeping better at night like a baby. As you know, they're truculent and difficult at night time. So I sleep better than one. Healthier hair and skin. It helps with my digestion. My stomach feels better. I feel better overall and I think healthier and stronger. Field of Greens is radically different. Each organic fruit and vegetable was medically chosen to support the heart and vital organ health. I trust Field of Greens to keep me healthy. I promise you're going to love this product, but if for any reason you don't, they'll give you 100% money back guarantee. Now listen, I've got you 15% off your first order plus free rush shipping. Visit brickhouserussell.com and use promo code BRAND. That's promo code BRAND at brickhouserussell.com. They'll know I sent you. Okay, let's get back to the story. Let's have a look at how they've applied the same mentality. I'm speaking specifically now of Drew Barrymore, who I would say is, I just love Drew Barrymore. She's a great person. But look, I've been a Hollywood insider and you don't sort of know 1 minute you're sort of on X Factor, you're doing these things, you don't realise people are just, oh yeah, in fact, they don't know. I don't reckon that it would have twigged, oh, you're being invited to apply a nickname to Kamala Harris that invites us to see her as a parental figure. I don't figure that it goes exactly like that. I don't figure it's like that. But this is interesting. So we've just seen Howard Stern, you're like a father, you're a good father, you're like my father. And then what does Joe Biden say? Yeah, me and my father, we was watching some gays kissing in Rodney Square. Okay, well that's just regular family life. Me and my dad just settling down for some popcorn. Corn Pop was a bad dude. Corn Pop was a bad dude.
And Corn Pop was a bad dude.
Now let's have a look at Drew Barrymore using the same technique to normalize, familiarize Kamala Harris, who seems to me to be somewhere between unusual and inept to offer a succinct diagnosis.
I've been thinking that we really all need a tremendous hug in the world right now. Yeah. But in our country, we need you to be Momola of the country.
Now, I'm pursuing a new way of life. I've surrendered and repented. I want to see the good in everybody, and I urge you to do the best in whatever way seems right to you to do the same. But It's extraordinary, isn't it, to see propaganda live in action. Kamala Harris is a human being. She's a child of God, whatever language suits you. But, you know, the idea that Kamala Harris is going to wrap her arms around us and that Joe Biden is kind of like a father or a grandfather is reductive. It's insulting. That is not the political solution that's required. Looking at the extraordinary cluster of mega crises that need to be brilliantly navigated with radical systemic change that requires radical new systemic thought, a new analysis of precisely the economic, ecological, ideological challenges that we're facing. It's not enough to invite you to be once more infantilized. And note how many times the invitation to become an infant is offered. You can't choose for yourself which content to look at. Why don't you let Daddy Joe and Momola Harris put their arms around you and their hand over the screen, and they'll decide what information to censor for you.
As the Fox censor, it's my job to protect you from reality.
You can't decide whether or not you should take a certain medication. Let the state decide. You can't decide what's misinformation and disinformation. Let the state decide. Let your family decide. You're just a little kid. Now go to work and give us a significant portion of your daily earnings so we can be mom and pop and you can be a very dumb little kid. Or as Colin Jost off SNL, again, another formerly great American institution would have it, Grandpappy Joe. Let's have a look.
I lost my grandfather this year, as you alluded to, a firefighter, William Kelly. And I swear, Mr. President, this is not an age comparison.
Because a grandfather's old and Joe Biden's old. We're really, the gloves are off now, man. Woo! Bloody hell, cool it down. Whoa, look at this free press. What, could you believe that? That guy, the comedian, he just said that grandfather, and then he mentioned Joe Biden, and that's old. That could be derogatory because age is part of the process of moving towards the grave, a grave that we're all approaching because, you know, Joe Biden might be crazily steering us towards Armageddon, you know, like we could have a nuclear apocalypse. I mean, Russia have just explicitly stated they're considering nuclear attacks on the American mainland, but woohoo! Oh, really? That's really helped me let off some steam there. Everything's working. The establishment's working. The propaganda's flowing. They're beginning to show their hand. It's beginning to fall apart. It's becoming plainly visible. To any one of us, we can see what they're doing. The cracks are emerging. But you'd have to be smoking crack to believe this propaganda.
You remind me of him. Some of your best qualities remind me of his. He voted for you, and the reason that he voted for you is because you're a decent man.
Decent. There's no need to think anymore. Don't think about the border crisis. Don't think about the escalating wars. Don't think about your own ontological despair, the decline in meaning, the loss, the atrophy of a once great nation. Don't think about why Donald Trump is in court for a minor legislative misdemeanor conflated, inflated and amplified into a felony in order to take the guy off the ride. Because remember, Trump is bad. You don't need to think about that. They told you. And anything that swayed you from that perspective, that was probably misinformation and disinformation.
My grandpa voted for decency, and decency is why we're all here tonight. Decency is how we're able to be here tonight.
Julian Assange is in jail in the UK. He's been there for 5 years. He's awaiting extradition because he published information in conjunction with some of the media organizations that are in that room right now. Earlier at the White House press correspondent dinner, you heard the astonishing fact that over 100 journalists, maybe as many as 175 journalists, have died in Gaza. What was not mentioned is how they died, why they died, and who supplied the weaponry. Because if you were to outline that, the answer is very simple. It's that very decent, lovely old grandfather sat right there, Joe Biden.
And when you look at the levels of freedom throughout history and even around the world today, this is the exception. This freedom is incredibly rare, and the journalists in this room help protect that freedom, and we cannot ever take that for granted.
Like, even they, look at their faces, even they know that's not true. They can't even get it up for their own propaganda. They know that in your thousands, you are turning away from legacy media because, like me, you are awakening. Like me, you have understood their deception, their treachery, and their lies. Even if you've worked in legacy media, even if you've enjoyed the artifacts of legacy media, the comedy shows, the movies, you're realizing now this is just an object, like a helmet of deception forced over your skull to constrict your ability to think freely. The word freedom here blithely, dishonestly, deceptively used, when in fact, propaganda, conditioning, deception, this is a panopticon of absolute deception. You're being constantly surveilled. You're being constantly lied to. You're being constantly censored, and the information you're being fed by these people that you're invited to look at as your family is simply not true.
So, Mr. President, I thank you for your decency on behalf of my grandfather, and I thank all of you, almost all of you, for your decency as well.
So there you have it. Are the Biden administration a kind of new family just trying their best? Mama Kamala, old Pappy Joe Biden bombing us to Armageddon, and a whole host of cousins, inbred, making out in the revolving door between the state to induce globalist deformity. In my opinion, they are. But that's just what I think. Why don't you let me know what you think in the comments and the chat?
Hey, thanks for watching. If you want to see more uncensored content where free speech can flourish, join our live stream. Click the link right here to watch the next video if you want to, or become a member of a growing movement. Download the Rumble app and you'll be informed every time we make a new piece of content. Stay free.